It was a cold and dark winter night when I found myself in front of the rusty gate of an old abandoned cemetery. The moon was hidden behind a thick layer of clouds, making everything even darker. I had been drawn to this place, despite the stories that circulated about it. Stories of satanic rituals and encounters with the unknown. I needed answers, and that night I had decided to find them. I had spent days researching information about the cemetery and its legendary rituals, but all I had found were scary tales and whispered rumors. No one seemed to know what had really happened here, but everyone seemed to agree on one thing. It was a cursed place. As I crossed the gate, the metallic sound of my steps echoed in the silent air. My flickering light cast eerie shadows on broken tombstones and crooked graves. It was a place in ruins, forgotten by civilization, yet it still had an unsettling aura that sent shivers down your spine. I had armed myself with a flashlight, a recorder, and a camera to document everything I would find. It was a small comfort in the midst of all that darkness and the growing feeling of oppression. I continued to walk among the graves, looking for clues of the satanic rituals I had heard about. The ground was covered with dry leaves and broken branches, and every now and then, I heard a rustle or a whisper coming from the surrounding darkness. Slowly, I realized I was not alone in this place. Something or someone was watching me. I kept walking faster, trying to ignore the growing anxiety I felt. My flashlight illuminated spectral tombstones, some of which dated back over a century. It was hard to imagine what had happened in this place over the years. Suddenly, my flashlight went out. A sense of terror enveloped me, and the cold hit me like a blade. I could hear heavy breathing coming from somewhere nearby, but I couldn't see anything in the total darkness. I turned on the flashlight again, but the light flickered and didn't seem to stay on. "Who's there?" I shouted, trying to hold back the growing panic. No response, just the sound of my steps on the sandy ground. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest as I moved deeper into the cemetery. That's when I saw her. A tall, hooded figure standing among the tombstones, motionless. The dim light of my flashlight didn't allow me to see her face, but I could feel her gaze fixed on me. I dared not approach, but I couldn't take my eyes off that eerie figure. "Who are you?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. No response once again. The figure remained motionless, like a funerary statue. I decided to approach, driven by a strange mix of attraction and fear. With every step I took, the figure seemed to move away, but no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't reach her. It was as if she was always just out of my reach. I got lost among the tombstones for what felt like an endless time, following that hooded figure that continued to elude me. In the distance, I heard a low, deep sound, a chant that seemed to come from some dark ritual. It was a chant that made the hair on my neck stand on end, a chant that seemed to come from another dimension. Suddenly, the figure disappeared. I found myself alone among the tombstones, surrounded by deep darkness. The chant had stopped, replaced by an oppressive silence. It was as if the world had come to a halt. My flashlight went out again, and this time I couldn't turn it back on. My trembling voice only called back the echoes of the graves. It was as if the cemetery had swallowed every trace of life and light. I realized I was trapped, ensnared in this dark and spectral place. My only hope was to seek shelter in one of the graves, but my mind was tormented by thoughts of what might happen if I got too close to those tombstones. All I could do was remain still, waiting and praying that my fate had been decided. Time seemed to stretch into an eternal limbo of terror. I didn't know how much time had passed when I heard the chant again, this time closer. It seemed to come from all directions, surrounding me with its eerie melody. I turned in all directions, trying to pinpoint its source. It was as if the darkness itself had taken shape and voice. I felt a shiver of panic run up my spine as I realized that the chant was growing in intensity. It was as if the cemetery itself was responding to the presence of an intruder. And then, suddenly, the chant stopped again. The silence was deafening, and I was left alone with my anguished thoughts. In the darkness, I heard a whisper, a soft and sinister voice that murmured my name. I couldn't tell if it was just my hallucination or something more real, but I was sure of one thing. I had to find a way to escape. I wandered aimlessly among the tombstones, desperately searching for a way out. Then, suddenly, Another vision struck me. A red flame rising from an open grave. I approached cautiously and saw a scene that sent chills down my spine. In the open grave, there was a circle of people dressed in black, with red candles and an ancient book open in front of them. They were singing the sinister chant I had heard before, and in the center of the circle was a hooded figure. The same figure I had followed among the tombstones, and now it seemed to be at the center of a satanic ritual. The people around the circle sang louder, and the candle flames grew stronger. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, and terror paralyzed me. I had no idea what to do, or how to escape from this horrible vision. I was trapped in an endless nightmare, surrounded by dark forces I couldn't understand. Suddenly, the hooded figure turned towards me. I couldn't see her face, but I felt her piercing gaze that went through me. It was as if she was calling me, inviting me into the circle. It was an irresistible and terrible lure. Without thinking, I approached the circle. The people around me continued to sing, but now they seemed to speak with a single voice that filled my brain. I had lost all control over myself. The hooded figure approached, and her hands reached out to me. I was hypnotized, unable to resist. Her touch was as cold as death, and I felt my consciousness slipping away as the world disappeared around me. And then, darkness. Silence. I don't know how much time has passed since that cursed night in the cemetery. I don't know if I'm alive or dead, if I was part of a dark ritual, or if I'm still trapped in an endless nightmare. My mind is confused. My memories are blurred. I don't know if I experienced a real supernatural event, or if it was just a hallucination. And so, I remain here in the darkness, not knowing if I'm saved, or if I'm condemned for eternity to wander among the graves and the unfathomable secrets of the cemetery.